Hey, this is Matt Hines with DevOps TV here at the Does 16 conference for DevOps.com. I'm joined by David Rosi from DBmaestro. Thanks a lot for joining us today, David.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. We're having an interesting conversation before we sat down here about what it is that DBmaestro does, but just quickly, could you give us a little bit of background?
Sure. So DBmaestro was founded in Tel Aviv, Israel, one of the hot tech startup havens in the world, and certainly DBmaestro's been very successful there. We just started our North American operations in the Boston area not too long ago. Companies, gained a lot of traction in a fairly short period of time, and we're focused on the DevOps arena from the database perspective. Just a couple of things there from a standpoint of the database. App development tools have been around for a while. There was a study last year done by D-Zone that talked about the use of app development tools and the speed in which they were being used for continuous delivery. And what we found is that databases were far less in use, and that's becoming a drag on really deploying continuous delivery in enterprises.
And deploying anything.
Deploying anything.
The database
pretty much.
Yeah, it's where the rubber hits the road with
exactly.
A lot of this. So what are you seeing in terms of, obviously people have identified this as an area of need in terms of, again, bringing the context of the database into continuous delivery and DevOps. What are you seeing in terms of changing perceptions and adoption?
Yeah, so, fundamentally what people are looking for now is they're saying we have to move fast. It's the classic DevOps vernacular, right? We need speed, we need scale, we need security, collaboration, all of those things, and safety among them. And so what we do as a company is we provide all of those things in terms of being able to provide source control, all the automation that goes with creating the database scripts, and then all the security that tells you where and what and how and why you did something with the database. So that's really where our strength has been, and what we're finding from customers is more and more they're now saying, it's not enough to do things manually. It's not enough to do things with compare and sync tools. We actually need to bring all these pieces together for us to be successful.
Yeah, the database could be a pretty significant bottleneck in
Absolutely.
terms of how everything fits together. And I think in general, we're hearing more this year about tooling. I think in previous years, there's so much focus on culture, and of course it's still a culture-first movement, DevOps that is, but we're starting to see more openness in terms of discussion in terms of adoption of tooling or best practices. Do you think that's affecting how people view what you're bringing to market here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as the study showed, right, I would say back a year or two ago, or even probably a couple of years ago, people were not even thinking about the database. They were doing things manually, writing scripts, doing some simple compare and sync analysis, but they weren't doing what they now need to do, because the uptick that we've all seen in the use of tools on the application side is making the database more of a spotlight. So more and more companies are saying, I really need to address this problem. They're working with DBmaestro, and I'm sure other companies, around how do you fix that problem. And what we're finding is people are actually wanting to do tests, wanting to do POCs, wanting to buy, and starting to even purchase again after they've already tested it. So all classic behavior in a market that's starting to ramp up.
Yeah, and continuous delivery, right? Like DevOps, we had a lot of conversation at the beginning of the week here that DevOps means something different to everybody. And the same can be said, of course, for continuous delivery. And I think some people take a view that continuous delivery is mostly about release or release automation, when in fact, again, within the context of what you're talking about here, it's a lot broader, right?
Absolutely. So if you think about what we looked at as a company, and in the company actually the product was built by folks who've come from the operations side, they're DBAs, they're app developers. That combination is what built the products at DBmaestro. So they're thinking a little bit differently. And from that perspective, what we had to do is we looked at automation is great, but automation on its own is not enough. So what we looked at was the need for things like source control that's different in a database world, and then the ability to automate what you now have trust in, and enforce that source control so that you don't have anybody just playing around in the database. You can guard against that, and then having the security and the reporting at the other end that's going to tell you anything and everything you'd ever need to know about what happened with that database, which is even more important these days.
Yeah, no doubt. Security is another topic I think we're seeing elevated across the community. Certainly it was always part of the conversation, but if you went upstairs even this year and walked around the show floor, there's only a couple security-specific vendors, and they're mostly related to source code analysis or some sort of code analysis testing.
Right.
And it's interesting to start talking about security, database security within the context of DevOps. Clearly a lot of activity.
Yeah, I mean, so what we do is in the source control world, what we'll do is we're able to understand, one thing is it promotes collaboration between groups, but what you're doing is you're actually checking in and checking out objects, right? And you're able to analyze and watch how that happens. And because we're doing all kinds of analysis on the front end of something that you want to build, we're doing it not just in compare and sync, we're doing it with a baseline and really a three-way look at that code. So when it gets to automation, when you want to start moving it through a pipeline, there's more trust in that data. There's more trust in what you're moving through the process. Yet we're able to create the scripts and run them, and it takes a lot more of the manual process out of it.
Right, and it's security and automation. Whoa, watch out! In the past, we haven't been too comfortable about seeing those words together, using in collaboration. And a lot of that was about security management.
That's right.
But I think that's an interesting inflection point in terms of DevOps, right? Because we're now starting to leverage automation earlier on. That is going to again root out a lot of the problems that could become security headaches down the road.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's an interesting time to be involved with both DevOps and security.
You absolutely right.
Yeah. So again, it'll be interesting to see how things continue to evolve in the database. David, so thanks so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
And again, Matt Hines with DevOps TV here at DevOps Enterprise Summit 2016 for DevOps.com. Thank you.
Thank you.